Alright, welcome behind the scenes where I'm actually getting ready to shoot the intro to this. And hopefully, let's see, what am I missing here? Makes a big difference to have the HDMI cable in. Aha! Recording audio yet. Oh, gotta get this on. So this is the Tascam something or other. Turn this on. My light keeps funking out on me. It said funk. Wow. Maybe do some cool editing here, we'll see. Alright, so the camera is recording. So I've edited this a couple different ways, and you'll be able to see behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, through the scenes, in the scenes. We're going to take this video, break it down. You'll see a couple different lighting setups. So welcome to this tutorial on a fancy yet budget video setup. In this video we're going to break down a couple different things. My goal was to make this as budget friendly as possible but still have a lot of options as far as what I could do with it, and also wanted to be high quality, like high standard of quality for the video. So audio had to be good, video had to be good, and the lighting had to be good. But I'm going to be cutting to this camera, which is my old school Canon Vivix, which I actually shoot my vlogs with, and you'll see this for the most part. I don't think I'm going to cut to the GoPro, but maybe I will. Maybe just for the fun of it. And it's in the right mode, and we're recording. Because the cool thing is, if you have multiple cameras, you can have different angles and things like that. I'm going to do a walkthrough now of the different pieces of this fancy setup. So let's start with the GoPro. Now the GoPro is, for me, it was my main camera. I was going to have just this, and I was actually going to get a modifier for the lens and put a lens on it, because if you don't know, lens makes all the difference in the world. And as far as quality goes, you know, I'm shooting everything at 1080p, so I'm not doing any 4K video stuff. Don't quite need that for the web just yet. Soon enough, maybe. That is the B camera, so that's a cool kind of wide shot. I'll cut back and forth to it. Then I've got my main camera, so we'll start with camera gear. In the description you'll find a link where you can find all this stuff broken down and the pricing. But I'm going to break it down based on two different ways. One is everything here that I've got, and then I'm also going to break it down as a little more economical version of this exact setup. So you could do everything I've got here for less than $1,000, probably less than that. I'm going to just share the basics that you need, because I did go bare bones on most of the elements that didn't involve camera. So first things first, the main camera is a Nikon D3200, which is a very nice camera. It's one of their lower end DSLRs, but it still shoots 1080p video, which was the main thing I was looking for. I would have loved to have it do 30 frames or 60 frames a second, but 30 frames per second looks pretty good. Our good old friend GoPro over here is set to 60, but with YouTube it's difficult even to tell between 30 and 60. I wish it was 60, but it's at 30. Now, I have quite a few different lenses, but the kit lens that comes with it is okay. The main kit lens that, if you're going to buy this, there is a lens, and I'll try to zoom in on it here. The one I have on here is an F, and I'll put it up on the screen because I don't know off the top of my head what the f-stop. I think it goes all the way down to 4.5, something like that. The idea with the f-stop is you get a little more depth of field. So if I focus it manually on the camera, you'll see the background's all blurred out. So that's what the f-stop really affects the most. The lower, generally, the better or more depth you can get with that depth of field. So this is the Canon Vivix something or other. They probably have a way new version, a newer version of this. Mine is fairly old. I think this is like 4 or 5 years old, but it does really well still. It shoots 1080, actually shoots 60 frames a second as well. But I use this kind of as the live camera because I don't have fancy lights hooked up to it or anything, and you can't really do too much crazy stuff with it. But it's a good side camera. So that's all the cameras actually. That's it. Really, 3 cameras is plenty. You only need 1. So let's say I had this set up here, and I'm recording, right to you. I can actually cut to the camera behind me, get a cool view. I could cut to the GoPro, which is a cool view. And actually I could bring the GoPro around here, set it here. Gives you that kind of nice, like, newscaster kind of vibe. And that's the nice thing about having multiple cameras. You gotta know which one to look at. What's that noise? You gotta know what to cut to, you gotta know the... Someone's working on something evidently. It's gonna be great in the background. I don't know what that is. I feel like someone's working on something. And now let's talk about lighting and the other stuff here. Rewound. I'm actually going to talk about the lenses now. So we talked a little bit about how important it is to have a good, low f-stop. It's not the biggest deal in the world. Lower is better if you want to have some nice depth of field. But honestly, you can get away with a $200, $300 lens and be just fine. Now, the one number that I actually didn't know much about until I started really doing a little research was the millimeter count here. So you'll see this is an 18 millimeter to 70 millimeters. So what that means is at 18 millimeters, I'm pretty far zoomed out. So the actual distance between the subject and the lens, the lower the millimeter, the farther away you can get. Now, if you obviously zoomed in at 70 millimeter, which is pretty darn zoomed in, about a 50 millimeter is about right here. So most lenses you purchase will put you about right here if it's a 50, 55 millimeter lens. And that's a little difficult in a smaller room. So this room isn't huge, and with a 50 millimeter, I need to put it almost all the way against the wall just to even get a nice frame shot. If you're doing a lot of close-ups and stuff, it's totally fine. The best setting, the best lens you could probably get is like an f1.8 with 24 millimeters. I don't know what that is. I feel like it's somebody working on something. Okay, so I have a few other lenses, and this is kind of a fun story, but this is a nice lens. I got it on eBay for like 120 bucks. f1.8, 50 millimeter. It's like literally somebody drilling. It's like 7 o'clock, 6:30. Well, alright, I think they're done. Whatever they were doing. If they come back, I'm just calling it a day. Okay, so got that off eBay. I actually got this lens off an old Nikon, so this is something you could do. I went to a thrift shop and I got this camera for $39. And it came with this lens that works on Nikon digital. Now the one thing is it doesn't have automatic autofocus, obviously that kind of stuff, but it is a nice lens. So it goes from 28 millimeter to 70 with a 3.5, and the whole lens was 30 bucks. So that lens on a newer lens may be $300. Not exactly sure. $300-400, maybe more. Got a kit lens that came with it. This is an okay lens, not great. 55 to 200, good for zoom. And then I've got this big, 70 to 300, which is more outdoor. Keep in mind, you want a low millimeter if you're going to be shooting indoors, kind of like portrait stuff like this, so you can do wider shots. And then if you want to get a nice like close up, you can. Come on now. There we go. It's kind of a nice bottom light. We'll talk about lights here in a minute. But you can get a nice close-up here. It has a nice depth of field. You'll see like almost to my shoulders out of focus. Everything behind me, it's out of focus. So this is with the 18 millimeter, and I can zoom it in, keep that f-stop, and get a really cool kind of dramatic shot. Can see, get really close in depth and You really got to be careful at lighting at this point. Keep your eyes lit, things like that. My huge face does cool things. The lens is all about getting the lighting. Really just, lens is 90% of what is going to make the shot look like it does. You do a lot in post and a lot in with the lights themselves, but if the lens isn't right, it's going to be very difficult. So next, let's take a look at some of the lighting setup here.